everyone, I'm Brianda Nava, and I'm here to remind you that you are an amazing, multidimensional human being. If you don't know me, I teach about the 7 dimensions of wellness, and today we are talking about occupational, vocational. If you haven't been following the series, we are talking about the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So, I talked about the gifts of revelation, which is wisdom, knowledge, and discernment of spirits. And now we are currently talking about the gifts of power, which are faith, healing, and miracles. We previously talked about faith and healing. So today we're going to be talking about the gift of miracles. So healing and miracles seem very similar. So a lot of people ask, what is the difference? So the difference is that healing only has to do with sickness, and healing can also happen gradually. So it could happen in a few hours, in a few days, in a few weeks, versus miracles are instantaneous. And also, healing could be something that's not visible to the eye. It could happen inside of you, inside of your body, versus a miracle, it's something that you can actually see. So the gifts are actually kind of like the colors of the rainbow. They are each, the rainbow has its own distinct colors, but they all kind of blend into each other. So that's kind of what the gifts are like. They're different, but they kind of do work together. So, for example, the gifts of miracles and healing are pretty similar, and they both require faith. So they're a little intertwined, interdependent of each other. We can also see it as when we have faith, that's a good thing, right? But usually it comes with an action. So you have faith and then you have an act to release that faith. So we're going to go into John 9th, and it says Jesus heals a man born blind. So here for this it requires faith. So this passage has faith, it has healing, and it has miracles in it. All three in one. All right, so 9:1 says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming and no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. Go, he told him. Wash in the pool of Siloam, maybe? This word means sent. So in the pool of sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was. Others said, no, he only looks like him. But he himself insisted, I am the man. How then were your eyes opened? They asked. He replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash, so I went and washed, and then I could see. Where is this man? They asked him. I don't know, he said. So then the Pharisees go to investigate the healing. So now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Okay, so they go so therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. All right, so then the religious people were mad because he did something on the Sabbath, and they were supposed to, I guess, not do anything on that day. But I'm not going to go too much into that. But going back to what he did, it's interesting how he could have just put his hands over his eyes, but instead he made mud. He spit on the ground, he made mud, and then he put it on his eyes, which I think is kind of also like referring back to how he is the creator. And whenever he created man, he used clay. So he made the man out of clay and then he breathed into him. And that's when he became a living person. So I just thought that was interesting. So maybe that was his way of saying like the creator is still with you, because he also says, while I am in the world, I am the light of the world. The Bible's that's a lot of stuff that kind of leaves you thinking. You're like, very interesting book.
This episode was brought to you by BCN Supplements, our all-natural supplement company. First off, we have our hydrolyzed collagen. This is a 4-in-1. It comes with vitamin C for better absorption, hyaluronic acid, and biotin. So this is good for your skin, your hair, your nails, and your joints. And this is for both men and women. Next up, we have our immunity, which is a 7-in-1 vitamin. It has vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, echinacea, elderberry, black pepper, and garlic bulb. So this will give your immune system that extra boost. And lastly, we have our natural pre-workout. It does have 325 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea. It is sweetened with stevia, and its purpose is energy, focus, and endurance. And for our listeners, we do have a discount code. If you visit our website, www.bcnsupps.com, you can use code BUILT, BUILT, for 10% off. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, now we're going to Luke 17, and 17:11 talks about Jesus heals 10 men with leprosy. So it says, now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Or where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except for this foreigner? Then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. So again, talking about healing, we're talking about miracles, we're talking about faith and how they all intertwine together. So in order for you to do the healing and the miracles, you need to have faith, and the person receiving also needs to have faith. And we're going to go into one more story. This one is in Acts 3, Acts chapter 3. And this one says, Peter heals a lame beggar. So it says, one day Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer at 3 in the afternoon. That's interesting. Now, a man who was lame from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg for those going into the temple courts. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, look at us. So the men gave them his attention, expecting to get something from them. Then Peter said, silver or gold I do not have, but what I do have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk. Taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. He jumped to his feet and began to walk. Then he went with them into the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. When all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful, and they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. So, not only was Jesus the one doing the healing and the miracles, but he also gave his disciples that same power. I guess that's why they're called the gifts of power, because it's power to be able to do that. And I just think it's so cool how he allows humans to help each other as well. He's like, I'm going to give you these gifts, go and help the people. And I just think that's so cool. And now that we're talking about the gifts, I grew up listening to Christian music in Spanish. And there's this song that I've always liked, and I never understood until now that I'm doing this series. And it's called Manos Vacías by Lali Torres. And so the title is Empty Hands, I guess. Sounds weird in English, but so what it says is that she had a vision, and there was like an old man on a throne, and he called her, and with his hands she gave him something. I'm sorry, he gave her something. And he says, I'm going to call you back again, and what I just gave you, I'm going to ask you what you did with it. So it says, so I went on my way, and I saw an old man, I guess helpless. So like this helpless old man. And she shared what was given to her with him. And then she saw an abandoned boy and who was hungry. So she shared with him as well. Then she came across someone sick in their pain, someone in prison. She gave them some of that as well. And at the end, she came across an old lady who was crying and she gave what was left. Like whatever she had left, she gave it to her. So it says, again, the old man called her to his throne and he asked her, "What'd you do with the stuff I gave you? Or with the thing that I gave you?" And she said, "I didn't know if I should cry. I didn't know if I should laugh or cry of happiness. I didn't know what to do. My hands were empty." And I told him I gave everything. And he says, well, good for you, basically, in other words, because what I put in your hands was love. And I've always loved that song. And now that I'm doing this, I'm like, it all relates back to it too, because if you are given the gift of healing or the gift of miracles or the gift of faith, you need to have love for that person to even want to help them, to be like I said in the other one, maybe like you hide your gift because you're like, "Oh, that's probably weird," or "I don't want to be judged." But if you love someone or if you just love people, you're going to be wanting to help them, wanting to do that for them. So I just think that's so cool. And like I said, the three of them are called the gifts of power. And they're usually put together into that one category because I feel like you need all three, especially faith. So you need the gift of faith in order to release the other two gifts. So in order to heal people, in order to do miracles, you need to have faith. And then, of course, also the person receiving. You guys, I tell you guys all the time, I love doing this. I feel like not only am I teaching it, but even as I'm teaching it, I'm learning it myself. I'm like connecting dots and like putting stuff together. And it just blows my mind and it just amazes me how amazing God is. And the Bible, the Bible is not about religion. The Bible is about so much more than that. So if you have not read it, if you don't currently read it, I highly recommend you do that. All right, guys. Well, if you like the video, please subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, hit the like button, and send it to someone who you think might need it. On the next one, we're going to move on to the gifts of utterance or the vocal gifts. I'll see you guys on the next one.